So, Glenn,
Yes.
we're going to talk today about a very popular topic called rent vesting.
Yep.
Now, you and I have done this very differently. You've done the traditional path.
Yes.
I've done the new way of doing things up until this point where I've chosen to rent,
Yep.
why I build my asset base. Why don't you give a good explanation to those people who actually don't know it or may have heard the word rent vesting?
Yep.
And explain to everyone what it actually is.
Yeah, so rent vesting is the term of still investing in real estate whilst you are renting yourself. So you're renting your own property in the location that you want to live in, but then you're also investing in real estate in high growth, high yielding, investable areas. So I guess that from a definition point of view is the definition of rent vesting.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. That's exactly what I've done. So something I chose when I decided to embark on the journey of creating wealth, I chose to rent. One of the reasons I did that was I actually saw a lot of people in business who chose to buy their home first, and then they always went back to their home to access capital to put back into their business. And that actually puts a lot of pressure on the family and on their cash flow. So I just thought, hey, until things are really well and truly established, and I've never wanted to go from home and upsize the home, what I see so many people do. I said, why don't I rent a nice house and focus on the business and my investments? Saves me a lot of cash flow. It's not just the cash flow savings, it's the capital you do not need to put into a house to enable me to start scaling the business and scaling my investments. So now, we're looking now probably 18 to 24 months now looking to buy our principal place of residence, and it'll be a place we'll be happy to stay there forever. So there's not a right or wrong strategy, I would say. Sometimes looking back with the growth we've seen, I potentially would have said, hey, I should have bought a place. But again, you don't know what happens when you're on that journey. And especially if you're in business, there's a lot of risks that you take, which you don't necessarily take if you're on a salary. So happy with the decisions. When people ask me about it, it's all got to do with, yes, but are you happy to wait 10 years to buy a home?
Yes.
So when you talk to clients, like, what are their normal response to when you say, it's a great strategy, but are you happy to wait 10 years?
You get people that really are thinking things over, and I guess they perhaps haven't considered that's kind of what the strategy involves. It's very much a long-term play until you get into your owner-occupied property in terms of from a purchase point of view. So I guess people do the double take and go away and reconsider exactly what the priorities are. Now, I guess investing wasn't completely at the forefront of my mind when we were looking to buy our first home, my wife and I. So I guess that's probably why we went down the path, and we've gone down the upgrade side of things as well. We bought the first home, was 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom in a affordable suburb. And then as the family grew, the house grew into a nicer suburb as well. So obviously, as you know, there's been some gains in the property market over that journey. So we've been able to take some tax-free gains, which has been fantastic, building equity and then allowing us to sort of leapfrog and buy additional investment properties in more recent times.
Yeah, so you were able to use the equity in your home to now build a fairly sizable real estate portfolio.
Correct. Yeah. So in each time we've been able to tap into a particular amount of equity, which has then been able to be used as a deposit to then purchase again.
Yeah, which is great. So I think one of the things that people don't really see and understand about real estate, whether it's the journey we went down, which has certainly served you very well, or my path, when the property increases in value, so many people think, yes, real estate is such an illiquid asset, which it is. However, they don't understand when you access that capital, like the way you've done, and let's just call it $250,000, that's actually tax-free money. Because you take that and you put it into another asset. So you're not using it for personal use, it's for investment use. I mean, I would dare say if you're to save $250,000 liquid, it's going to take you a long time.
100%. Yeah.
Right? So having the power to actually tap in and get tax-free capital without selling the asset to go to another property, whether that's taken out of your owner-occupied house or of another investment property, is probably one of the most powerful things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's leveraging, isn't it? That's exactly what that is. So to be able to do that is, if you were to sell your property Absolutely. It's not very liquid at all. You're talking, marketing campaigns, setting up with real estate agents, and then 30, 60, 90 days worth of a settlement period. So you're probably talking 4 to 6 months before you get your hands physically on the cash. But accessing the equity is done within a matter of weeks,
Correct.
2 to 4 weeks, depending on which lender, and it's there for you.
Yeah. And you're not paying stamp duty to get into the market again.
Yep.
If you sold the asset.
Yep.
Tax and all those other costs as well.
Correct. So agents' fees. Yep.
So off topic there, but going back to rent vesting, one of the reasons I often tell clients 10 years, the hardest thing I think when it comes to those two choices is, do I rent or do I own, is the emotional factor.
Emotions.
I think no one can really argue anymore that you are financially better off, significantly financially better off by renting.
Yep. And
if you like to upsize your home, well, great, every year or two you can upsize the home without needing to sell it and pay stamp duty again. So there's some clear advantages. And then I see, like in my life, you get to the point where you're settled in an area, you have children, it's often the emotional factor that comes in. So it doesn't become about financially, is it the right decision? It's emotionally, is it the right decision? So that's, I think, when I talk to a lot of clients, it's that tug of war saying, hey, we know we need to build our financial future, because you don't want to leave that until you're 50 or 60 years old.
Correct. Yeah.
But we have this emotional tie to wanting to own the house.
Yeah.
So if you were talking to your younger self and you know what you know today about the investments, how well your investments have performed, would you have done things differently starting out with your wife?
Gee, great question. Great question. Because definitely there's the emotional side of things, as you talk about. There's a lot of factors. Obviously, the way that, in terms of personally, both my wife and I have been brought up, both parents have owned their own property and owned it for a long period of time too, which sort of brought the mindset into us of stability and staying in one place for a long period of time, which you can absolutely do renting. Oh, gee whiz, I'm tired. I don't know if I would have done things differently, because again, we've been happy. Yeah. It's worked out really well. No regrets whatsoever. And I suppose if you were looking to change, it's potentially if you've got a regret or a different education, which certainly different education, different understanding as I've grown in the industry and grown as a person. I don't know that I've got an answer for you on that one.
That's good. So what do you think, if let's say you have a young couple come in,
yep,
they want to buy their own home,
yep,
they don't want to go overboard. I think one of the big issues is people tend to go overboard on buying their first house and they want to spend $700,000-$800,000.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, next year you'll start to get some benefits from being a first home buyer of that price range, but right now you don't. At the same time, they have an ambition to actually build a portfolio. What would you generally do? Because you look at it this way, hey, great, you could get into the market with a 5% deposit.
Yeah.
That's it. Great entry point as an owner-occupier. And then if you choose to, that could become your first investment and then rent vest after that as well.
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, it's really digging down on what are their priorities, what's really important to them, and then we can work out the structure. But the point you make about not overcommitting is huge. We've seen people, throughout COVID and on the back end, buying into the market. Interest rates are at 2%. They're not very stressed at all financially. We've had the increases that we've had over the last few years, and all of a sudden, things hit the fan. So it's important now that even though we're just starting the downward cycle, that people still don't overextend themselves, that they are within their means. And that might mean just stepping it back a little bit so that they've then got the ability to do things in the future, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. What I find a lot of, where I won't say where, I say me, I won't put you in this bracket yet, Glenn, we're getting a bit older, right? Even though it doesn't look like it too much.
Correct.
And it's per our conversation about hair earlier. 10 years goes by like this.
Yep.
If you do the right things for 10 years, it's almost you can do anything after that.
Yeah.
So no matter what decision you make, I think a huge trap for people who choose the rent vesting path is they actually lifestyle leap too early.
Yeah.
So yes, if you're going to go down that journey, you want to live in a nice house you're going to be comfortable with and ideally don't have to move out of, but you have all this extra money and you have extra capital. Often we find when people are sitting on more capital and it's not placed somewhere, they tend to spend a lot more. They'll go on more holidays. They go out to restaurants more often because they feel wealthier than what they are. Where the true plan is, if you're going down that path of rent vesting, it's investing.
Yeah.
So it's the surplus capital you have, you need to put to work. It's the surplus income you have at the end of every month, you need to put to work, and do that consistently every month. Don't turn around and say, wow, I've got an extra $5,000 a month, I'm going to massively increase my life. I've seen that happen with a lot of people because they all have the best intentions.
Yeah.
But if they don't follow through on those intentions consistently for a long period of time, they're actually out of the market when they should have just bought.
And one word comes to mind there is discipline.
100%.
That you need discipline to stick to the plan and have faith, have trust that it will come through.
Yeah.
But as you said, if the lifestyle creep comes into it, the holidays, the upgrading of this, that, and the rest of it, you're no better off because you're going too early.
So how does the borrowing capacity differ? So from someone who might be living in their home, have call it a $600,000 mortgage,
Yep.
or someone who's actually renting, even if the rent is the same amount as say what the home mortgage would be, how does that differ from their borrowing capacity when they actually go to buy an investment property?
Yeah, so the bank's calculations are that they will look at existing debts. If it's an owner-occupied debt, there's no benefit from a servicing calculator point of view. If it's an investment debt, then the banks will factor in their servicing calculators your gearing benefits. So knowing that you're going to get tax break on the interest is clearly then going to bump up your capacity a lot.
Yep.
There's a rental income to be considered. There's also a rental expense as well for where you're
What
living.
about taking into consideration the expense of rent
Yep.
versus the expense of a home mortgage payment?
So a home mortgage repayment will most likely be expensed higher because they factor in an assessment buffer. If your rate is at 3%, the bank factor in 9% against that commitment. So it's loaded for any potential future rate changes. And the bank being conservative under their responsible lending, they'll add a little bit of a buffer.
And then wherever there's rent, it's just literally that rent amount that they
The
pay.
actual expense, correct. Yeah.
Which then obviously allows them to have a higher lending capacity to get into those investment properties.
Correct.
Here's a question for you too.
Yep.
What do you think the biggest mindset difference is from an owner-occupier, first, the way you've done things, versus a renter, myself, the way I've done things? How do you think obviously there's a perception difference from the general public.
Yeah.
But actually having done that, what do you think is the biggest shift from a mindset point of view?
Gee whiz. So maybe, I mean, and I talked about it a little bit before, the concept around stability, getting yourself into a base, potentially not the stigma is the right word, but the mindset is that if you're renting, you're at the beck and call of your landlord. They could potentially give you notice and you're up and out in whatever it is these days in terms of the laws. So owning your own home, you I guess control your own destiny from that point of view. So you've got the stability, you're in control. That's possibly a bit of a mindset for owner occupiers, as opposed to maybe a growth or a bit more of an aggressive game plan in terms of someone being content to be able to rent.
Yeah.
But they also then need the discipline as well to invest. As we talked about, the extra money needs to be going to somewhere. So you need discipline and a growth mindset from that point of view. So it's probably to a degree stability versus growth and acquisition, difference in mindsets.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't know about renting too is you can actually sign a 2 or 3 year lease.
Yeah, correct.
So every property I've gone into, I've actually never been asked to leave any of those properties.
Yeah.
We've upsized just like people do on a normal home, but we sign into a 2 or 3 year lease to give us a lot of stability as well.
Yeah. And that would also work. I mean, my dad said everything in life's negotiable, which is kind of one of those things, the pearls of wisdom that dad passes on. But that can be part of it too. When you're signing onto a new lease into a new property, from a landlord's point of view, you'd love to have your tenants in there for 2 years guaranteed. So if your tenants are happy to stay there and you're happy to have them, then why not look at a 2 year lease? Yeah, absolutely. That can work.
So I think when you look at it and you compare the two, each option takes a sacrifice.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? For most people, if they buy their owner-occupied home first and choose to go down the traditional path, you sacrifice more financial freedom because you're now tied to a mortgage. You sacrifice faster investment growth, unless you're someone who's on a very significant income. And you got to remember, if you put in $100,000 deposit into buying a house, you need to look at the return on that. So let's say you can make 6% a year, well, you're still then losing out 6% of that money because it's tied up over into an asset there, right? Whereas if you look then at the rent vesting path, you're potentially giving up the emotional security for those of you who like to paint a wall in your house or hang up a picture frame, which you can do anyway these days. You give up the perceived perception of security, but you can be much more aggressive when it comes to building wealth. So there's a trade-off with each. I think the biggest thing is when we sit down with clients and talk to them about this is making sure people actually understand there's huge pros and huge cons to both different ways.
Correct.
It's about really laying out a long-term plan. If owning an owner-occupied house is really important, but you can hold off on it, I would always say get out on the investment path. Build your wealth, buy your home. Because when you look at a lot of people who do actually turn around and buy the house first, they always want to spend money on it, right? So it's always, I need to upgrade the kitchen. I need to spend money on the backyard. When you rent, you have your rent payment and you don't spend anything above and beyond that.
That's right.
So there's a lot of hidden costs that people actually don't take into consideration when they own a home versus when they rent as well. So you never want to just look at what's my repayments. It's, hey, realistically, we're going to want to upgrade the kitchen. We're going to want to upgrade all this stuff. You need to take that into consideration when taking those offers as well and really lay out your own individual plan of where do you really want to be, what sacrifices, both financial and emotional, are you prepared to take to actually get yourself there. And like anything in life, there's no guarantees no matter which path you take.
Correct.
So you may choose to rent, the market goes through the roof, you can never get into the home you wanted to buy, which you maybe could have bought it at that time. And vice versa from an investment side of things too. Let me ask you this question. Do you work with many people who go down the rent investing path yourself, or is it mainly people who are a bit more established already?
I get a lot of perhaps first home buyers as my initial market. So people that are looking to use grants to buy their first, younger couples generally, that are looking from the emotional stability point of view is kind of my general demographic of client.